Welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show on 94.7 The Pulse. Music, interviews, news, and, well, Two Blokes Chatting. Now, here are the two blokes.
Now, we have a place in Geelong where there's been many fine artists have come and performed some brilliant stuff, Ross Wilson being the most recent. That is the Geelong Palais. And on the line now we have Meg Deyell, who is basically runs the whole show down at the newly revamped Geelong Palais. Meg, good morning and welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show.
Morning, gentlemen. How are we all?
Fantastic. We've tricked you a little bit. There's actually three people in the studio on the Two Blokes Chatting radio show. Neil Butler, who organised this, has had a little bit of a mishap and is unable to join us today, but we've had to bring in two people to fill his shoes. So you'll hear three different voices in the background. But Meg, it's an institution, the Geelong Palais. There's many people of my vintage and far older who have spent some wonderful times in that great building. It sort of went through a period of being just a bingo hall and then sat empty and redundant for a while. But it's been revamped, and much to the credit of the people that have gone to the past. And it's now, again, a Geelong institution.
It is indeed, yeah. So the Bingo Centre closed in 2016, and then COVID actually did us a big favour by making the company who take care of the Mariner Theatres in Melbourne, the Regent and the Princess Theatre and those things, unable to work at those venues. But we were regional, so they could come down to us. So we took advantage of that fact and built ourselves a new stage and did a new renovation in the foyer with them while they were available to us. So then we reopened in March last year.
So how do you get the venue onto the list of places artists want to come? I suppose have you got to persuade their managers and the like to put the Geelong Palais on as a serious venue?
Yeah, so that's what we're in the process of doing at the moment, chatting to booking agents and tour promoters and things. What we've also done is had a chat to some venues around Australia who have similar size, similar program to us, and then work into their network so that somebody can go, I'll perform Brisbane and Sydney and Melbourne and Geelong and Adelaide, and make themselves a little tour that way. So, and also the artists themselves, every time they come to play, you mentioned we had Ross Wilson just recently, they've had a lovely time performing in the Palais, so then they're turning around to their friends and saying, if you're going to Geelong, make sure you play at the Palais because it's a great room, sounds great, the atmosphere in there is really warm because everybody feels very close to the stage. Anywhere you sit in the audience is a really great view. So they're all starting to sort of talk to each other and booking in that way.
That must be massive for Geelong, just being able to poach, I suppose, some bigger artists and get them to come down. It must do wonders for the local music and theatre scene. What's the capacity like, and what's, I suppose, the atmosphere of the venues? Sounds to me like it's quite an intimate wee little venue, or is it bigger sort of thing but retaining that more sort of close to the stage feel?
At the moment it is an intimate room. We're 350. We're in the process of changing that to 600. That's just in the going through the motions with planning with council at the moment. But then once that'll be downstairs. Once we renovate upstairs, we'll put 300 more people up there, and that'll be 900. That we'll stop and we'll stay at that size because, like you said, it's an intimate space. We want the artists to feel close to the audience to feel close to the artists. But you mentioned about bringing bigger performers down to Geelong to impact the local scene. It's very dear to the owners' hearts that we do that. And an example of that is December last year we had Rhonda Birchmore come down from Melbourne with her swing band for Christmas. And she got two of the local dance schools to give her some children to perform with her. So she sent them tracks ahead of time, one in Act 1 and one in Act 2. They, the children choreographed some dances. They sent her a video. She learnt pieces of those dances so that she could include them in what she was doing. And so then now there's a bunch of Geelong children who can say that they've performed with Rhonda Birchmore.
Oh, fantastic. Now, when you're obviously talking about artists, is there any who are on your sort of hit list that, you know, when you imagine that stage and when you're putting it together, you looked at that stage and you thought, my God, it would be great if we could get such and such on board?
I'm a shoot for the moon kind of person, so I tend to go a little bit overboard. We are actually in conversation with the management of Ben Folds, who's a piano player. So I say, I don't think anyone's too big to play at the Palais. We could even do things like whoever the huge artist coming to play at Day on the Green is, Sting or Robbie Williams or Taylor Swift or someone like that. Maybe they come and sit on the couch next to a fern for an hour in the Palais and you have a chat and be one of 300 people in the room with somebody of that stratosphere. But I'm a bit ambitious like that.
I believe you've had some of the local theatre in there too, Meg, and I think that's going to be a great space for that too.
We have, yeah. So we started off in March last year with Chicago, the musical. That was a local Geelong theatre company. We actually, unfortunately, aren't great for theatre itself in terms of sets and props and things because we don't have very big wing spaces. I think probably the brilliant new development at Geelong Arts Centre might be better off for theatre itself. But music, absolutely. Comedy, we've had wrestling in the Palais. We're a very flexible space.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about sport, actually. I used to be a boxer and I've performed at a couple of theatres before, which is an interesting event. So it's good to hear that would be considered. I was just going to ask about comedy as well, because given the size of the venue and the sort of nature of it, it sounds absolutely perfect for maybe an upcoming comedian, or even if you could get a bigger comedian to play a sort of private show there. It sounds like a fantastic venue for that.
Absolutely. We had Pete Hellier and Dave O'Neill come down last year.
That's very good. And musically is the thing it was designed to be acoustically brilliant, and that was brought to my attention again when the ABC came down and did Friday Review, and the Goanna Band were in there and did their famous anthem, Solid Rock, and the sound inside that building for that song was just superb. So the building is set up for these fine musical sounds.
It sure is. It helps that inside the main auditorium there's this beautiful plasterwork around the balcony, so there's not any sort of parallel surfaces, so the sound bounces around really well. We're also very fortunate that we have a brilliant local technical company called Moon Mother who do our lighting and sound, and the sounds, the equipment they have, but also the humans, the engineers that they employ are so it sounds really, really great in there.
Now, it's an interesting time for Geelong. You mentioned the new development of the Arts Centre, which is spectacular. I went there recently to see a local production of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. It was just superb. The auditoriums are brilliant. They're modern. The whole building's fantastic. Costa Hall has served the region very well. And while we say, do we need another one? But the reality is, if we're making Geelong a destination point for our finest artists, comedians, theatre goers, whatever the case may be, the money spent on our arts precinct is going to come back to Geelong tenfold, and your organisation and building adds to that.
Absolutely. I like to look at it, the Geelong Arts Centre and us, like Arts Centre Melbourne and the Forum. So they're physically quite close together on Flinders Street there in the city. But one is a big art centre with multiple spaces and high technology themes, and the other one is an old building that's been converted into a band room. And so here we have, in Geelong, we have this beautiful new high-tech art centre with its multiple spaces. And then we also have a very beautiful old ballroom that has been converted into a live music venue. I think if they can do both, we can do both.
Yeah, I quite agree. We've been probably the poor cousin. I think Geelong as a whole for many years, the Sleepy Hollow might have happened before you were around, but there wasn't a lot going on here. But once the waterfront was revamped and some other activity has happened in the town, we really are now a wonderful destination point. And if someone wants to come and visit, see a show, they've also got the wonderful Bellarine Peninsula wineries and the Surf Coast. There's tourism. There's a lot to take place around Geelong, and to have an arts precinct like this as a centrepiece is quite spectacular.
It really is. The redevelopment of the foreshore is actually why originally the Palais is where it is. It started out life down on the waterfront called the Joy Arc. It was on stilts out over the water. It was actually Australia's first theatre built out over water, where the Ferris wheel is now. You might see there's a little bollard there who's a ticket seller of the Joy Arc. It's a memento. But then 1926 they wanted to redevelop the waterfront, and it didn't suit them to have a building sitting there anymore. So Howard Lawson took it apart and recycled the materials to build the Palais in its current location in 1926.
Okay, let's talk about what you've got booked in to come up, because I know it takes a long time. Artists have itineraries set 12 months ahead, so I suppose you're working on that and you will know what's going to be on that venue for a long way into the future. What do we know is coming?
We know next up is a rock band called the Butterfly Effect. They are on Friday the 17th of November. Then the next day we have a Johnny Cash and June Carter show called Get Rhythm. I believe you might be having a chat to them the next week.
We will be, I believe, next Saturday. We'll be talking to someone from that venue, from that organisation, I should say, that are coming to your venue very shortly. So, yeah, we're excited about that.
And they are selling very well, so if anyone is planning to come and doesn't yet have a ticket, I would recommend they get onto that because they are close to being sold out. In December, we have a local North Children's Choir from the Bluebird Foundation. They're doing a fundraiser performance of their choir, and we also have the Sweethearts, which is a local female big band doing their fundraiser. The Sweethearts are on the 1st of December, and then North is on the 12th, I believe.
Sweethearts, Matthew Flinders, Girls College, I believe. It's just a rotating band that they've kept going. They actually performed in the Palais when the ABC were there, and they were spectacularly good. And I know that the school puts a lot of time and effort into their music program, so if you get a chance to go and see them, I would do so. They are superb. So another big event coming, and a local one coming to a local theatre, so that's good as well.
Indeed, and they also have some of their younger performers playing before them on the same night. So, yeah, if you can come down and encourage local musicians, I'd really encourage that. That's the 1st of December.
Excellent news. So a lot coming pre-Christmas, and I'm sure you're working hard in your role to secure great events for 2024. So, Meg, tell us a little bit about your own personal history to get into this role.
Sure. So the building is owned by a family of accountants on Mallet Street, and they have 3 sons. The oldest son works with me at the Palais. The second one is an accountant in the family firm, and the third one is a musical theatre performer. So prior to working at the Palais, I was a director and stage manager up in Melbourne, working for 23 years, and I met son number 3 a very long time ago when the family was still running it as a bingo centre. And the dad, Frank, always said one day he was going to put it back to the art space that it is now. And I used to joke, well, Frank, when you turn it back into an art centre, you give me a call and I'll come down and I'll run it for you. And in 2021, that turned out to be not so much of a joke anymore. And so he called me, and indeed, I was already living in Geelong. I bought my house down here in 2017. And so he changed my commute to Melbourne to just 12 minutes down the road to the Palais.
Okay, so when that phone call came and the joke all of a sudden was then back on you from that flippant comment, tell me what was whizzing around in your head.
Well, first of all, when Frank called me and he said, can you come and work at the Palais? I said, of course not, Frank, because I was freelance. I was already booked for 2022, and so I was working for the Victorian Opera, and so he asked me to reconsider, and I turned around to the opera and I said, would it be all right with you if I only did the first 2 shows of 2022 and then ended up moving down to Geelong? And they were very gracious and saw the opportunity for contributing to Geelong's art scene, and they let me go. And so I swapped. So I arrived at the Palais mid-Chicago season.
Excellent. So your role from day to day, or what? Tell us a little bit about what happens.
Yeah, so I'm referred to as the general manager. And so I do sort of the business. So my colleague Michael takes care of the literal building. So he does the sort of the renovations and the buildings and maintaining the actual physical space. And then I control what happens inside it. So it might be booking the artists or liaising with their management through to taking care of our own staff, rostering them, making sure that they're all doing their jobs and they know what they're doing, and restocking the bar, cleaning the bar. That's my job. Also, then once the shows have happened, reconciling the finances of all of those and making sure that the actual business of running the Palais is ticking along.
And does that include the negotiations with the promoters?
It does, yes. So it depends on who the show is, what deal we do with them. And so we're that's all part of the negotiation in the booking process. And then I write the contracts up according to what it's negotiated and get those signed and done.
And I suppose the credibility that you've racked up with 23 years in the industry, you'd probably get some doors to open a little easier than most?
Well, I must confess that I did get my friends, Leo and Katie Noonan and Rhonda Birchmore, to come and play at the Palais purely because I just messaged them as my friends and said, come and play. And they said, yes, sure. No,
that's pretty good. And let's hope you have more doors like that you can knock on, because Geelong will be the beneficiary. It is a wonderful venue. There wouldn't be too many people who've been long-term residents of the town haven't stepped in there for some reason, whether it's just to have played bingo. I know many people in Geelong that are still happily married first met in the Palais back in its heyday. Yeah, so it's a real institution. I was there for a completely different reason as a teenager myself. So we've all got a little Palais story and what the family has done. Excuse me, to revamp the venue, but also fill it up with talented artists. It's a credit to you. And Meg, it's great to have someone of your ilk in there as well, flying the flag. So welcome to Geelong. I hope you enjoy I hope you've already enjoyed your time in the region.
Certainly.
What brought you to Geelong?
The house price from Melbourne. I could afford it.
So there's many people who've actually done that, probably downsized, reduced their debt to little or nothing, and have found the sea change, if we want of a better description, and the commute back to Melbourne. And of course, so many people working from home these days. It's not a bad place to live, rather than the hurly-burly of the middle of that horrible place called Melbourne.
Well, I'm from New Zealand, so the ocean always calls to me. So I had to. I would never buy somewhere like Ringwood or inland that direction. That's the same time travel to the city as me. I live by the beach.
Yeah, it's a pretty good spot. Meg, we will tap in with you again through 2024 as you bring more events to the town. Congratulations on what you've done. We thank you so much for your decision to come to our village and bring your skills down here and add it into this wonderful, wonderful building. So best wishes and thank you for your time this morning.
No problem. It's a privilege to be part of the Palais.
Good on you. Meg Deyell, Managing Director of the newly vamped Geelong Palais, and oh my goodness, I am so pleased that place is getting...
That's fantastic, isn't it? I mean, like you said, how many stories do people know about the Palais? And they're been passed. Now there's going to be future stories.
Yeah.